anyway. So as I said earlier, I'm from the Hunger Project Ethiopia, and I'm responsible for coordinating MND activities there in Ethiopia. The only person in Ethiopia to monitor evaluation activities is coordinated by me. For now, I am presenting for you guys these participatory MND activities in Ethiopia, how we conduct monitoring and evaluation with whom and something like that. And in this presentation, I will brief you with some background, and since we are implementing this participatory approach in our MND activity, we will identify and I will highlight some key stakeholders in MND activities. Then from that stakeholders, I will focus on the two epicenter communities and government and local NGOs. Then some scale-up approach will be highlighted. Regarding the background, THP Ethiopia started working in 2004 using this cluster approach, cluster village approach in almost six epicenters and 3 regions of Ethiopia and 5 districts. The main intervention areas in Ethiopia by THP Ethiopia is food security, education, and health and environment, and also microfinance and women development. This is an integrated manner of approach to end hunger and poverty and meet the MDG goals. These are the main objectives, the main goals, and nowadays we are also focusing on this 1,000 days nutrition program because it's a little bit, interested by the local partners because of several reasons. Because we are late in this infant and maternal mortality in Ethiopia, so we are incorporating that approach integrating that approach into our intervention. So what's participatory MND approach? You know, I think you all know that participatory approach is like, doing our MND involving all stakeholders, starting from planning into implementation and monitoring and to the last outcome. So we have a principle in our participatory MND approach that participatory approach will be based on transparency and accountability. So we work to bring this transparency and accountability into our Hunger Project implementation phase. The other is knowledge and learning. If we implement this participatory approach, we can have this transfer knowledge to others and learn from what we are implementing. So this is one principle. The other is data belongs to the community because the owners are the community in our implementation. So we see that all data, all activities at grassroots level is owned by the community. So the data and the information coming from the community. So we believe that. So that these are the 3 principles that we are following. The other is to meet these objectives, to ensure the participatory approach of MND. We follow some, we implement some activities like we prepare reports to our investors, to the government, to the global office. We also provide training to the community members on collecting data and how to use information. So we ensure the quality of data. This is what we do. This is the center of our participatory approach, giving training, giving capacity building activities to the community at grassroots level for volunteers as well as the leaders of the community. I will come back to you later on that approach. The other is conducting evaluation and research. The joint evaluation and research activity with the local partners, the community, the local government agency, and local partners, be like other local NGOs or international NGOs, as well as other partners like CBOs, community-based organizations, like indigenous organizations. We have like call them others. In this approach, in the participatory approach, we have key stakeholders, several stakeholders. The stakeholders that the main ones are, as we see, the epicenter communities. Maybe Megan will come to us about what. Maybe you all know about epicenter. I don't know, but would you like to give them some highlight about our epicenters?
Maybe when you finish, we can.
Okay. We have epicenter communities. Represented by several structure and selected committee members. We also have the government and the local NGOs at grassroots level, as well as regional and national level. We also have THP Global Office here in New York, as well as here in New York mainly, and investors, our investors, we call them our partners, investors in other part of the world, as well as inside our country, like from Sweden, UK, something like that, who is funding and providing technical assistance to our programs. The other is the next partners are international partners at local level and NGO community at local level. These are the main key stakeholders in our participatory M&D activity. But for this presentation, I will focus on the two epicenter communities and the government and local NGOs, because I feel those two are make us unique in Ethiopia from other NGOs, and so I will focus on the two. Epicenter communities. We call these epicenter communities, maybe Megan will come back to you later, but we use this epicenter strategy when we implement our program, and we identify some areas which needs an intensive intervention to end hunger and poverty. So we organize the community into a big cluster of village and organize them into epicenters, build facilities, this L-shaped facility, to come together and communicate and plan and organize with a little assistance from others that come from the problems identification, and others come from the community, and the planning as well as others will be done by the community at epicenter level. So we one epicenter maybe become one district in our case, with a population of around an average of 25,000 population. So this epicenter population, we elect epicenter committee from villages, from each village, 2 men and 2 women from each village. Then they form this epicenter council, a huge council which is responsible to decide and implement, plan, something like that. And a steering committee, epicenter committee, will be elected from that council. This epicenter committee is responsible for implementation of the project activity. So these are elected leadership board and serve as a representative for the community. They are also delegated by the assembly to be responsible for planning, prioritizing problems, and reviewing progress. So these are the community members, and they are also main point of contact for data for our purpose, because of their vital role in epicenter implementation. The next is from out of leadership, out of community epicenter committee. We have these animators. Animators are volunteers from the community. We select them based on their active participation in the community intervention, as well as their preparation in terms of their education, maybe volunteerism, something like that. So we trained these volunteers from each epicenters. Nowadays we have around 120 M&D animators. So we provide them with various trainings, capacity building trainings on planning, monitoring, and something like that, on basic data collection, something like that. And these animators will assist us a lot, both the THP Ethiopia as well as the epicenter committee. They are directly responsible for epicenter committee, but they will be trained and provide data to THP Ethiopia as well as epicenter committee. So they will assure us the quality and participation of our community into our participatory M&D approach. They also are responsible for disseminating data on findings from our research, as well as our success stories to the community, or new findings, new things to the community. And they are like a link between the community as well as THP or epicenter leadership, something like that. So they have a vital role in this participatory approach. Here, in one of our epicenters, the leadership committee is gathering to supervise and monitor and evaluate their activities. These are in a remote part of Ethiopia called Gurib. As you see, it's a village part of the country, and they were provided with participatory M&D activity. Here we are focusing on women, so we encourage women to be the engine of this participatory approach, and we encourage women, since in Ethiopia we have this problem of gender equality as well as participating women in development activities. We encourage women, we more work on women to be involved in leadership as well as planning, monitoring, and implementation of village projects. So this also ensures the success of participatory approach. Then, after we organize, structure, and provide training, capacity building training to our M&D animators, we proceed or track progress through various tools and activities. The activities include epicenter activity planning and general assembly. The general assembly will assess the annual plan as well as the 5-year plan, biannual plan, something like that. So this activity done in periodical level, as well as this bi-monthly meeting also done by epicenter committee. Quarterly reporting and analysis is done at epicenter level. Biannual per animator workshops and trainings is provided by THP and the community by themselves. Since we are planning to sustain the program, we equip or we capacitate the community to do this per animator training by themselves. So we encourage that one. The major tools we use in participatory approach are, we use this transparency board, the transparency board at the epicenter level. Those transparency boards used for posting the various plans or performances and financial status of our activities. So everybody who can go to the epicenters and see those transparency boards and raise issues and come to the epicenter committee, discuss them, solve, and ask why some activities are lag behind, the other are doing fine, something like that. So this transparency board help us a lot for participatory approach of monitoring and evaluation. The others are, we have also manuals, registration forms with local language, so they can easily get these manuals and registration forms and use them for various type of monitoring and evaluation, as well as implementation of the projects in a more systematic manner. So these tools also help us in tracking and participatory approach of monitoring and evaluation. The other is we also use reporters. The reporters for the epicenter committee prepare these reporters, as well as our project officers based on the epicenter committee outputs and something like that. We also conduct some joint terminal and midterm evaluation reports and quarterly reports and annual reports, which is going to be disseminated to various stakeholders. So these tools are also available at epicenter level to be assessed and to be internalized by the committee as well as the community. Other stakeholders may also use this report. The global MND system also is helpful for ensuring this one and other evaluation. Next is our vital partner in participatory approach next to the community is the government and local NGOs at grassroots level. In Ethiopia, we jointly work with the government because of various reasons. The first reason is legislation for active NGO participation in Ethiopia. The legislation of the by the National Charity and Society Agency of Ethiopia highlighted that all NGOs has to work with the government, starting from the identification of the problem to implementation, planning, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation. So this is the ground for our partnership. But we consider other vital things for partnership, like to avoid redundancy of the programs, because some NGOs or the government may implement the same program what we are planning. So the partnership will avoid that, and the other is the government will also be allowed to monitor commitment of the NGOs at national level and achievements of NGOs. It also allows us to ensure the integration of NGO operations with the national strategy to bridge the gap of the government and other since the lion's share of investment is from the government. NGOs shall not repeat what the government is doing, so it ensures the redundancy as well as ensure we are under the framework of the national strategy of the government. It also gives us a national platform for THP methodology to internalize our strategy into the government and NGO framework, our epicenter strategy. So it will give us a room to entertain this point. So how we partner with the government? In Ethiopia, as I said earlier, we start partnership with the government in problem identification before we start investing in that area. And program planning. We design, when we start working, we design a 5-year strategy, mostly a 5-year strategy and project agreement. In that design of this 5-year strategy, both the government and THP work together from the government side, since we are implementing this integrated approach of rural development, almost all sectors of the government involved in our planning and implementation phase, like the Rural Development and Agricultural Bureau, the water sector, the health sector, the Women and Children's Affairs Office, and others. So we make assure to the involvement of these stakeholders in our planning and implementation process. The other is provide technical expertise during implementation, since we sign an agreement, a commitment on the project implementation. The government as well as the HP will make sure provide technical experts are on the track, on the field, so this will be ensured. So after implementation, we do this joint monitoring and evaluation and also research activities in a joint manner. So in this case, we will ensure the participatory approach of monitoring and evaluation. When we conduct this joint research and evaluation, we follow these steps, like we have this 5-year project, as I said earlier, for all epicenters in Ethiopia. We have 6 epicenters, and we are expected to jointly evaluate all 6 of them from 2030 to 2050. Until now, we complete 3 epicenters joint evaluation. One is in progress, the other will be conducted next year. In doing this, the government and THP provide some rules. They come together and prepare this term of reference on how to conduct this evaluation. Designate appropriate resource. The government needs to supply some staff, some resource, as well as expertise, and THP also is responsible to do that. And create a timeline on how and when and by whom that evaluation needs to be completed. After this, THP prepares a summary report. This one is required to be conducted by external evaluators, by consultant, but since we are short of fund and there is a tight, also there is a tight proclamation, the tight law by the government that we cannot exceed 30% of our budget for M&E and research activity out of the total program cost. We cannot do the external evaluation by external consultants. So we do it by ourselves, and we bring the report to the government, and joint qualitative data collection will follow to make sure all the data, the secondary data, is supported by primary data. We use this rapid rural appraisal approach to conduct this terminal evaluation. We use various techniques like focus group discussion, interview,